Plan Commission does recommend approval. I won't go through all the comments. There are a few that are specific, and that is the new structure has to meet all the setback and requirements. A 10-foot landscape strip be built along Valley View Drive.
They maintain that.
They will maintain that. The new structures shall meet the PD setback requirements, but the existing structures, which are non-conforming, may remain. And so they did recommend the continuation of that non-conforming setbacks. And that concludes staff's presentation.
How long have those existing duplexes?
They've been there.
A long
Since
time.
1975, because they were here when I was there.
A long time.
Okay, so there are currently 9 units already there? Or
There's-
6?
There's 6 units, and they're going to be adding 5 units.
Okay, so I'm confused. I went to Dixie though, so it doesn't mean
And Woodard.
There are currently 6 rental units containing 3 duplex buildings. That's 6 to me right there, and a triplex, that's 9. Am I confused, or is somebody just playing jokes on me?
There's currently 6 rental units total.
So
So
then
there-
there are only 2 duplex buildings.
So there's
There's
3 duplex buildings.
That's 6 rental
2,
units.
4,
Or
6.
somebody lives in them, so they're not calling them rental units? Is that what we're saying?
No, that's written not very well.
So there's 9 rental units.
There are 6 rental units,
How many are there?
and they're gonna add 5.
So is there not a triplex then? Currently existing?
There's a duplex. That's a triplex.
Okay, so 2 duplex and a triplex would still give us
Usually adds
7.
up to 7.
That's getting closer.
I think there's 2 I think these are all I went to Dixie too.
Would you like me to make a motion?
Hang on. I have to do a public hearing first.
He went to
Oh.
Dixie High also, so it could be any answer.
We might have had the same math teacher, so we might be in real trouble. I'm Kent Fry, and the 3 existing buildings are all duplexes.
So there is no current triplex.
No.
Okay, 'cause that's what it says on our sheet here, so I was a little
And the
confused.
confusing thing, I think, is that if I see some confusion there, I think it's 1.2 acres that under the master plan would allow 5 more units.
Okay, so
And
you're,
that's, we will build a triplex and a duplex.
okay,
and
so you're
have a
building
total-
5 more.
Yeah,
There'll be a total of 11.
11 units.
I ran out of fingers at that point.
So that means there's 6 there now, huh, Jimmy?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Got it.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. And all with garages.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, any other questions? Then I'll open the public hearing for any who've come to offer opinions or input on this item, number 8. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action.
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve an ordinance changing the zone from R110 to PDR and other sections right there. And to review the text, the design, the site plan, and the parking, the landscaping, and the elevations for proposed apartments, new duplex and triplex buildings to be called Sunny Lane, and continue the non-conforming setback for the existing units. The proposal is located on 1.21 acres at 1121 West, 750 North.
Second.
Motion by Betty with the second by Jimmy. And that's all the recommendations of Planning Commission, I assume, both of you.
Correct.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, starting with Joe, say aye.
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 How about that? Motion carries unanimously. Can we go one more? Can we do number 9?
Sure.
And then we'll be ready for Desert Color. Thank you. Thank you, John. Appreciate you and Ray and Wes.
Next item on the agenda, item number 9, public hearing consideration of ordinance changing the zone from open space to RE20 on 2.5 acres for Middle Valley Farms Phase 12. Proposals located east of the Fort Pierce wash and west of the existing Meadow Valley Farm subdivision. So it's a request for a zone change to RE20. This is the location of the property. You have Quarry Ridge Drive here, 4040 south. This is Little Valley where this little valley will swing around. The current zoning on the property is open space. So you see you have some RE20 surrounding it to the north and to the east. This was part of a general plan amendment that the city council heard approximately 2 months ago, and they did change it to low density residential, which the request is within that range and the recommended zoning. This is, again, the property is the 2.5 acres to RE20, and Planning Commission reviewed it and recommended approval for this request, and that concludes staff's presentation.
And obviously, we're okay in terms of proximity to the wash and all that stuff.
Yeah, this will be located out of the floodplain.
Okay.
Can they have animals on
RE20, you can't
Yep.
have animals,
there?
yep.
So,
I was just asking Jimmy how many horses we thought we'd see
Right,
on these
so-
lots, but they can, but probably not too many, huh?
Just
Nice
a different,
lots.
maybe some horsepower.
Maybe some horsepower. Any questions?
Mayor, I'd make the motion to
Well-
approve. Oops,
I got to do public hearing.
oh, sorry.
So let me open the public hearing for any who've come to provide input on this item number 9. Probably none. Close the public hearing, and I'll come back and now Ed, if you'd like to make a motion.
Make the motion to approve the ordinance changing the zones from open space to RE20 residential estates, 20,000 square foot minimum lot sizes on 2.5 acres for the Meadow Valley Farm Phase 12. The proposal is located east of the Fort Pierce Wash and west of the existing Meadows Valley Farm subdivision at 440 south on the extension of Quarry Ridge Drive.
Second.
Motion by Ed with a second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Jimmy this time, say aye.
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 Thank you. All right, motion carries unanimously. Now, let's recess for just a few minutes, be quick. We don't need a motion to recess.
Okay, whoever's in charge of the thermostat, it's cold in here. Great big guy sitting down here like this.
I did my last 3 items in like 10 minutes.
Is there any bananas or apples in there?
There'll be some. No, we used to, and we got our hands slapped by Yo Boss. I-
We are changing that process in the future.
We want you to sit here. Have you gotten enough of us yet? This one hopefully will be pretty quick. I had a 2-hour work meeting. It's like 40 slides, but it'll go really quick. Turn around and look at Hey, but the last one, I cranked those things out. It's because I fed back there. I try to soften them up for you guys. No, it's not unfortunate. Yeah. You're a lot older than
Speaking of, I talked to Code Publishing while I was at the conference. We don't have an updated printed code. Did we decide to get one or to not get one? What did we decide? Well, to prepare it, it's $100 for her just to prepare the printed copy. Okay, so should I have have it go ahead and do it, because you guys are paying for it now. And I'm sure $100 is going to be that big of a deal to your budget. I meant to ask him, I forgot. I've got to get them to her, so. But are we already paying for that? With the extras that we got? I think we are. Maybe we need to have a phone conversation with them. No. But wasn't this for me?
Pick a better word. Be just as effective to say that. Shot. Who said yes? He invited him too, so they've been invited twice.
I couldn't actually hold on it. I think Laurie said yes. I think he's the only one. So is that a separate table? But is that a separate table? Same table.
Are these the ones that I can sign?
I have the table captain. We're gonna make him table captain.
Really? What about me? What about me?
You just have to do the list. Chapter 54.
Will you get us out of here by now?
Good try. We need to, huh? Yep. All right, let's do it. We're ready.
Where's Betty?
Oh, we're not quite so ready, but Betty's right there.
I'm gonna go fast.
That's right. Those people will be using that. All of those people. The one that's gonna get us is when we get back over here on the boulders. You know, that old Sheffield stuff. Did you see that stuff they got over here at by Painted Pony, that- they got this whole plan out there, there's big hotels and all that stuff they want to do in there. They got a big display downstairs yeah. Yeah, they got some big, well, what these guys want to do, they want to have a hotel out there. Right by the summit, right, that big lot right there. Oh, I haven't seen anything. Yeah, but they're off and running. I don't know how those people there in the border.
John's patiently waiting for us to restart. These next three, if I got that right, Adam, are related to Desert Color. We're on 10. So we've spent considerable time last week and previously, but last week kind of final presentation from Desert Color and from John, from our staff, on these items. And all of the material is available to the public. I think that's the most important thing to note here. Council, I would like to greatly minimize the presentation tonight because of the hour. I don't think there's, and with your consent, I don't think there's a need to go through this even as much as we had planned to because of last week.
We covered a lot of it, and it was done in the workshop meeting
Yep.
in public.
I'd like to make a motion.
Well, we got to do a public hearing first, but John, I think John ought to cover at least some very high level. Adam?
And I would just suggest, John will get to this, but we will want to perhaps amend the order that we ask you to
Okay.
make motions
Yep.
on these.
Yep. So why don't you do a very, very high level
Very
version?
high.
Because again, I think it's not going to make a difference in the end since we've all been aware of this for many months. About a year and a half, I believe.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, so give it your best shot to do a 30,000 foot level.
Okay.
Maybe 40.
We're looking at the first phase, which is the south phase. The other areas will come in at a later date. So we're looking at the first 1,300 acres. This is the zoning. We have the T&Z area, which is all residential, resort, and then the commercial area with the horizontal overlay located here. This is the chart, just kind of give an idea what will occur. We have about 190 acres of commercial, 875 acres of residential, the resort area and open space. The total density of the first phase, or the total number of units, is right around 5,900 units for the first phase. The overall will be about 3.27. We'll see each one of these as amendments, these north and east phase. So right now it's just this upper portion that we're looking at the zoning for. This is just typical. We kind of reviewed a lot of the architecture of the project. This is their sign plan. I'll just review this really quick. They're requesting the 40-foot sign located A, which is here and here, the 50-foot sign located here, and then the 20-foot signs located here, and then all of the other signs, the monument signs located throughout the community. This is just giving you a flavor of some of the monument signs throughout the subdivision, some of the commercial signage on the building. This is a chart, and part of this is the Atkinville, removing the areas from the Atkinville and integrated them into their zone plan.
How many 50-foot signs?
One.
Just one.
Along with that, that's the zoning booklet. The first neighborhood is this neighborhood 4A. This is the area located right here. Staff's reviewed it and meets all of the criteria for the T&Z ordinance. They provided each of these numbers, which relate to an elevation that's located on the table. Also, we have the materials board for each of these types of materials. There'll be single family, there'll be townhomes, what they call Muse mansion style. All the different variations will be located within this first phase.
Within that, yep, same area, which, again, we haven't seen this before. I mean, we haven't seen this in another
That's
development.
correct. Yeah,
This is
this
the
is-
first time.
This is new. This is alley loaded. Garage is in the rear. The front will have the front porches. It'll follow all the architecture that we had reviewed in the zone book. This is new to St. George.
But again, we were hoping we would see this. I think it's, yep, yep, yep.
When the South Block area was reviewed, this was the intention, was to do the traditional neighborhood, and 10, 12 years later, we're seeing it. This is the elevations. I'll go through these really quick. We had seen these before, and they're also located on the table with the materials board.
Hopefully, council, you've had a chance to see these either last week previously or along here, and they've been either in here or the other room for some time. I think some great options.
Civic space, they do meet the 5% requirement. They're going to have shuffle board, courts, bocce ball. They're going to have lawn areas, some centralized areas throughout this first phase. There's also the preliminary plat, which is identical to that site plan, just in the form of the preliminary plat. So this is the third item.
Yep.
Paula may want to discuss the order, but I believe it may be best to do the development agreement first, the zone, and then followed by the preliminary plat.
Does that sound right?
The applicant's here. Staff is here to answer any questions. That was the 40,000.
1,000-foot level.
Yes.
Any questions for John? I think he planned on doing more, but any questions for John?
Is shuffleboard making a comeback?
Shuffleboard?
On cruise lines, on cruise boats.
Seriously, there was a guy when I grew up, had a shuffleboard court. We'd walk along the wall and go into his backyard, and he'd let us play, and we thought he was the richest guy around because he had a shuffleboard court. It's awesome. I hope it is. I used to love playing it. I might have.
But he
It's
can
been-
play-
Probably
he can-
been since I was a kid.
He
Since I
can play
played.
pickleball.
Sorta. As I get older, I'm getting better.
Planning Commission and staff spent a lot of time on this application. There are conditions that are in the staff report, the recommended conditions.
So let me ask, I think we covered this last week, but were there any points of disagreement between staff, planning commission, and the applicant?
This was a very, each of the items, we discussed them between Planning Commission staff and also the applicant, and I think that we all kind of agreed on what was presented. There was definitely a little bit of negotiating that occurred, but I think we all felt comfortable with what the outcome was.
Very good. Any other questions for John? And then I'm going to let Brooke or whoever would like to from the applicant if they want to say anything.
On these designs, do we have any seaside architecture?
Like by the beautiful sea, that kind of thing?
Cape Cod.
Cape Cod.
Because if you did, I would put down money right now.
There's some pretty good looking.
There's they have a variety of different architecture styles.
I can see. No.
Maybe not Cape Cod.
They're not quite Cape Cod,
Well,
but
that's where the pioneers came from that came here. And I don't know why we can't nod back to them, but we just don't. Surprised you don't have sandstone.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's true. All right, thanks, John. Brooke, is there you or anyone on your team you want to make any comments or praise the staff or?
That's all I want to say. And we know that this project started long before we even thought about it back in 2005, 6, and 7. There's been a lot of work from the community when they originally put the plan together, as well as the last couple of years. As we've shared our ideas, received feedback back from the community, we've been able to create a plan that we all want to see accomplished. So just thank you for you and your staff and all the time that everybody's put into it. Thanks.
Thank you, Brooke. Any questions for Brooke?
Just thank you for trying the TNZ.
Yeah,
I mean,
excited to see
you
that.
are going to set a precedent, I think, that will be wonderful for our area.
Thank you.
Brooke, before you leave, I notice your brochure says that the Desert Color will use 40% less water. Can you enlighten the public, those at home that may be listening to this, and talk a little bit about some of your efforts made to reduce water use?
Absolutely. And that was one of the major cornerstones of our project, was to try to figure out how to reduce water demand as much as possible. And it's really accomplished in a variety of ways. It's not just one thing carries the day. So first of all, using secondary water for all outdoor irrigation helps immensely. That is at a minimum a half of water use in St. George. Secondly, minimizing lots, minimizing the amount of grass that is in each individual lot, and combining that all together out in larger public areas that can be professionally managed is a big component of it as well. And then utilizing the different water resources that are available to their highest and best potential as well. Culinary for culinary use, secondary for outdoor irrigation, and for the amenity ponds and things like that, utilizing the salt water that's deep in the wells.
The
out there.
brackish
The brackish
water.
Mhm.
So well said, and that's important because this whole, as we were talking last week, this whole development will have a secondary water system.
It's fantastic.
And, you know, the choice of landscaping and all of those things all factor into it as well to support that secondary use and the reduced amount of water even in the landscape as well.
Brooke, did we end up, and John, did we end up where we feel comfortable in terms of the landscaping? You know, we talked about this at one point, not over planting,
Yes,
I still think there's much more we can do,
Mhm.
and I hope we'll do that as an example, as a good example with the city as we redo things. And do you feel good about what
Yes.
you've got?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you all.
Okay. All right, I will open the public hearing. Let's see. We're going to do the development agreement first, correct? So that does not require a public hearing. So first is number 11? Council, do you feel you have enough information at this point to make a motion regarding the development agreement for Desert Color, as has been explained and presented to us last weekend, this week officially?
And we would ask that it be subject to legal approval. It's not quite finalized. It's I think just needs signatures really at this point.
Sean
but it's-
mentioned that to me, so that would be helpful.
Motion to approve the development agreement for the Desert
Second. Oh,
Color,
Subject to,
subject to legal.
very enthusiastic second.
we have a motion by Jimmy, with a very enthusiastic second by Betty. That is, I assume, again, with all the conditions.
Correct.
Of Planning Commission, Jimmy and Betty.
Correct.
And subject to legal approval. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Betty, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Now, we would go back to number 10, which is which we'll need to do a public hearing for. So I'll open the public hearing for anyone who may have come to talk about this item, number 10 on our agenda, changing the zone. That's pretty amazing, but I think it speaks well of the applicant and the Planning Commission and the staff for doing a lot of work over the last many months, because there have been many people with input. So I will close the public hearing, come back to you, council, for your action.
Motion to, are you okay with that? Okay. Motion to approve the ordinance changing the zone from R110 mining and grazing to PDTNZ and PDTNZ Resort and, wait, are we leaving the PD Agriculture in there? gosh, it's got better even. PD agriculture on approximately 25.77 acres and open space.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jimmy with a second by Ed. Any discussion? And again, there's a lot of detail behind that, but it's, again, according to what the Planning Commission's already approved. Any further discussion?
Just, when are we going to change that name, Australicus? Is that part of this?
That's their first priority? Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, gentlemen. All in favor, starting with Ed this time, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Now we go to item 12, which is the preliminary plat. Do we have a motion to approve the preliminary plat for Desert Color Neighborhood 4A, which was what was specifically presented to you tonight?
So moved.
Motion by Betty with a second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Desert Color. Congratulations. Can't wait to see it move forward. It's going to be incredible. They all have thank you.
Betty, you'll have to let us know when you get a house out there.
Hey,
I mean,
it looks pretty good, doesn't it?
It really looked nice, yeah.
Okay. Now I believe, and don't feel let down because, you know, that was kind of, you know,
Yeah.
you feel good. Okay, all right. I mean, we could take 3 more hours if you want, but I don't, yeah, thank you.
You know, Mayor, you just might want to comment on all the work that was done in the Planning Commission and how much effort they put in, and I know Joe did.
Yeah, I mentioned
forth,
them,
boy.
but yeah, there were hours spent there. So,
Plus, we had a lot of meetings, other meetings, work meetings.
yeah, this
It's
is
been going on a while.
Driving around.
all right.
fun.
Ray, let's go to item 13.
Item 13 reads, consider approval of a conditional use permit and also a building design conceptual site plan to allow development of an assisted living facility with 103 units to be called the Abington at St. George, located off of Four Master Drive at approximately 805 South, 1450 South. This site is immediately east of Meadow Creek Estates. It's near River Road, and the zoning is administrative professional, AP zone. So this shows the general plan, and this shows the area right down in here. It's professional office. And then it shows the current zoning, which is R110. And recently there was an approved zone change, case 2018 ZC020, that made this area AP. Our GIS hasn't been updated yet, but that is AP, as you probably recall. So real quick, here's a vicinity. Here's the hospital for reference. Here's going up Four Master, Coral Desert, and you can see the layout here. That's also behind the council on the wall on the floor there, the large foam exhibits, if that's helpful. And River Road is right here. Again, the site. This shows a close-up. It's all one building, kind of a horseshoe shaped, but again, for assisted living facility. And they do plan to improve and put this road in here. I'll let the applicant address that, but my understanding is it'll go down to 900 South. Ground cover, planting, and the elevations of the building. I'm going through this quickly unless you want me to stop in
You're
more
fine.
detail. And then the colored rendition of what that would look, and it's covering all of the sides for that horseshoe-shaped building. But this isometric is a nice, good view to see what it would look like there. Now, we've also taken into consideration how close the residents were, what the code is for building heights, and honestly, they've stepped it back so far. It was a non-issue. And then the materials board is also up there for council to see. That is the quick overview of it. I think that concludes staff's comments. I'll look briefly here. I don't think there's anything I didn't cover. It would be 2 actions. It would be a conditional use permit, and that includes findings, and then the building design conceptual site plan. So if you're looking at page 4, there's an example of Planning Commission recommendation for the CUP with 2 conditions and then the findings.
question.
And then on page 6 of the staff report is the Planning Commission's recommended motion for the building design conceptual site plan. That concludes staff's comments.
Sorry, Ray, I missed the part. Why does it have to be a conditional use permit?
Because of, let me go back to that, because it's in the code. If you look at page 2, Title 10, Chapter 9, Administrative and Professional Zone, the AP zone, it's got a section 1093 that says conditional uses. It says the following uses are conditional and subject to requirements of Title
Convalescent
17,
homes, rest
convalescent
homes.
home. So it seems redundant, but it is required, so.
And it does require 2 separate motions? Okay.
Yes.
It does.
Okay.
And examples are in there for you, and then what the Planning Commission recommended.
Council, do you have any other questions?
Mayor, I'd just like to bring a little bit more attention to what the contents of this particular development is going to be. This has gone on for 12, 14 years on how this property was going to be used, and so it's progressed to this point. And I just wanted to on the units, that there were going to be memory care units 25, studio units 38, and 1 and 2 bedrooms in there. And they'll have independent bathrooms and kitchenettes. It's gone to quite a ways from what the people living next door at Meadowbrook were concerned about and objected to over 12 years ago, maybe longer. So this is a big step.
Seems like a good use, too, in that area. Doctor's office is very close, hospital very close. It gives us a chance, both of us, to extend the road going down from the cul-de-sac. And eventually, and I think, Adam, we talked about this with senior staff, I think the city, we would bear some of the cost of that. The developer would, until we reach the end of their property. And then we own a parcel on the lower end with the university. We would need to extend it down to connect down, past that substation, the power station, and to 900 South.
Big step. Great.
And that will help with some of the traffic, because there will be obviously some more traffic. Gives us another kind of back way out of that area. It's too bad some of those streets didn't line up better there.
Right,
But
this is a big step, and the traffic issue is immense right around that, just the hospital itself.
Well, it'll be a little better when they get the
signal, well, and the signal in. There will be a signal there at Medical Center Drive and Formaster, and that's close.
It really is.
You're close to getting that in. So, any other questions or comments, discussion? On first, the conditional use permit, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the conditional use permit to establish a convalescent home known as the Abington at approximately 805 South and 1450 East.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, I'd entertain a motion on the building design, the building design conceptual site plan, as has been presented to us.
Motion to approve the building design conceptual site plan, otherwise known as the BDCSP.
Yeah, you
For
saw
the-
that, didn't you?
Yeah, it took me for a minute. For the Abington at St. George.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries unanimously. 14.
Don't think you have to leave. You can stay.
You can stay if you want. Must see TV. Yeah, we should have asked you.
I just wanted to say, if I was still a constituent here, you would have won my vote tonight.
Oh. Thank you. I think that's a good use for that property.
It really is.
And
Oh, folks, we've been on this number 14 before, haven't we?
Yep,
We did.
yep.
All right, Ray?
So, number 14, you have seen the whole presentation before. Mayor and council, I kind of skipped that unless you want more detail on it. As you recall at that meeting, you asked staff to look and give you a comparison figure of some other landmark sites that were nearby. So I'll just direct your attention. I won't read it, but I'll kind of give you a summary. On page 4, starting on the bottom, page 4 is a comparison of the Whitehead home, 278 North, 100 West, and all of the conditions that council put on that when it was approved in the year 2014. And then jumping ahead to page 7, Julia Graff home, 252 North Main, corner of 250 North and Main Street, and the approval, the conditions, and the findings council did on that in the year 2014 in August. And then finally, another comparison is on page 10 of your staff report, the William H. Thompson home, or also called the Thompson Mansion, 212 North, 100 West, and the same thing for that, and that was council approval in 2007. So you have a lot of examples. The Planning Commission on this one had recommended approval with just 2 items. The applicant shall maintain open and clear driveway. And then the second one had to do with landscaping. And then the findings, the comparison is all 3 of them that were shown as examples. They had more conditions, as you can see. And I'm going to just race through it and kind of give you a highlight. Number 1 is landscaping to maintain that. Number 2 addressed on-site parking. Number 3 was to address access. Number 4 was to complain with hotel requirements and that it would be approved with no on-site manager. 5 was weekly cleanup. 6 was cleaning between occupants. 7 was if it reverted back to single-family residential, the conditions for that. 8, it's not approved for any commercial or retail use unless it came before the City Council for approval with a conditional use permit. And that's pretty much is it. I just tried to kind of summarize all those lengthy lists from the other 3 comparisons.
Is it across from Morby's?
From where?
Morby's? Jeff Morby?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh. My neighborhood.
Yeah, it's just right down the street here.
Sorry, I thought I had a larger aerial, but I just have the one there.
I have a comment about this. I'm having a real struggle with it, to be honest with you. And here's why. If you look at those 3 samples that we did a CUP on, all of them were on the street, kind of sitting by themselves on a corner or a diagonal. This is right in the middle of a residential neighborhood.
Well, kind of. You got the senior center right there and Legion Hall.
Around it, you got, other than the senior center, you got 5 houses right around there. And I guess that's my challenge is we may set a precedent that we don't want to set.
And they're popping up all over in that area anyway, illegally.
What?
Rental, or is this a vacation
Short-
rental?
Yeah, it's a short-term rental.
There are some that are going.
Well, not just up a little ways, but I see them. It's not hard to know that it's going on.
But apparently we're not enforcing that or what?
We are when we find out.
I haven't reported them yet. I've reported all my neighbors for something or other. I worry at night. I lock really tightly because somebody's going to stab me in the night.
Ray, since we're on that issue, the term vacation rental versus a short-term rental, which is really what it is, and it is in the residential neighborhood. Have you gotten any feedbacks from those who reside immediately adjacent to that or within a block or 2 that have some objections to putting short-term rentals in the middle of a residential neighborhood.
I know the planning commission got one from the person on the east, plus there was a petition signed by about 7 or 8 people who live in that general area.
That's correct. I have the case file here, I have the petition, but that summarizes it.
Thank you.
So, again, I think we talked about this a little bit, but what's the purpose? If we could, just review the purpose for why we've allowed these in this area.
It was to preserve those older homes.
And they were, yeah, they were bed and breakfasts, most of them.
Right, but it is a difference because theoretically someone's there.
We've had dentist office, we've had spas, we've had bed and breakfast. I mean, there were other examples. We tried to get what was close, an example of the use.
But those ones that were approved, there was an on-premise person who lived there.
Right.
Well, if they were approved as a bed and breakfast.
We
There's
had,
some that are offices.
we had some approved for a short-term rental without somebody on site as well.
And these examples had where someone was not on site.
Yeah,
Some
these
wa-
examples you had, they're not on site.
Right.
Right.
Oh, gotcha. So, it's hard for me too, but I think one of the things is to try to preserve the character, to try to preserve the building, What might happen if we don't allow this? I don't know. Does someone decide to come in and tear it down and start over?
Is this a red brick home?
No. It's white.
That's right.
It's right
Here-
there.
Here's the building on the screen.
Okay.
I went and looked, but it's really charming.
Well, the other thing you have to remember is that this is a conditional use, which means it is permitted unless there are negative impacts that you think cannot be eliminated. If there are negative impacts that can be eliminated by some kind of condition we put on it, then you can deny it. But you have to identify what those negative impacts are, put that on the record, and then why you believe those negative impacts cannot be mitigated to a point that makes it acceptable for the use to go on that property.
So, for example, could we stipulate that it's got to be owner occupied?
If you have a negative impact that you've identified, that you believe the owner being there could mitigate that impact, then yes, you could require that.
One of the things with that particular piece of property that I think is in its favor is that you're not going to sleep 50 people there,
True.
like we've had on some.
Right.
It's not a
short-term
10,000
rentals.
square foot home.
Yeah. So,
Well, and the parking to me is really important. I think they should have to park off.
It's got significant
they
parking.
got that long gravel driveway,
Yeah,
plus
make a-
some parking in the back.
Right.
So that's another thing going forward, I guess.
They have easily room there probably for 12 cars or more.
Which they'll never have,
No.
I
No.
don't think.
Mayor, I take all the comments that you've made as to the positive aspect of this historic home. And the only reservation I would have is the setting of precedents to allow short-term rentals in that area. But I think that this particular structure maybe if you had to have a place designed for it, this would perhaps be the one.
But can there be, I don't know if this is even for real. If there were a strict restriction on it, can it go with the deed? Because I think the place is for sale.
Yeah, some of those examples I think I read in there was subject to somebody acquiring the property.
They were, huh? That Thompson home probably was.
The
Like,
use does go with the property.
Yeah.
So if it's approved, then whoever the new owner is would have to comply with those same terms, and if they want to change them, they'd have to come back and request those kind of changes to
But
it.
otherwise, they keep the use.
Otherwise, they keep the use.
And
so the next person sells it, it stays the same use. They
It
can't.
stays the same use.
And this applicant is in the process of selling it to somebody. It is that my
I don't know.
But we're approving the use
Right, just.
with the
use.
conditions, as Paula
So
just
you
said.
need to identify what your concerns are. Is it the number of people that will be coming in and out? Is it the number of
Yes.
cars that will be coming in and out? So, why is that a concern? How is that going to impact the neighbors? What is the concern? Is it the noise level? Is it the garbage? Is it just the volume of people? You don't, limit the next door neighbor on how many family or friends they have coming over. So what would you do different with this property?
So, if you could remind me again, Ray, how many finished bedrooms are there?
I believe there was 3. Is that correct? 3, yes.
And are they big bedrooms, or, I know the carriage house is pretty small.
I mean, we have the footprint here that kind of shows, but you might want to have the applicant kind of summarize too.
Any other questions for Ray? And then we could invite the applicant to come and make any comments, and we can quiz him a little too. Sound good, council? Okay.
Good evening. I'm John Lundberg. I'm the owner and applicant. And I've owned the property 21 years, and we've been careful to preserve as well as we could the look and feel of the place. And we put quite a bit into it. Did some upgrades in the historic home, and then we built the back building to carefully match the architecture of the front home at some considerable cost. And then we put in some landscaping that includes a lot of things like historic sandstone blocks that were taken from another historic home that was dismantled in the town in the 1990s. And we've maintained a historic root cellar there. And anyway, so I'm very aware of the concerns of the neighborhood. I've talked to all of the neighbors, particularly the one on the east side that had sent the letter in, Jeremy and Amy Forsberg, about it, and understand their concerns. They've got a neighbor on the other side of them that has had some issues in the last year with some illegal activity, and then a little change in ownership that's had some people coming and going. So they're concerned, and I can empathize with that. So I know the other properties are a little, more isolated that way, but if you could look at our property, we do kind of have barriers around the property that, either landscaping or other, fencing that kind of makes it somewhat isolated. And, I did talk to my wife goes to a salon and the person that she goes to lives right across from the Whitehead home. They're on 100 West, and she says, people are coming and going all the time at that short-term rental, and she's never had any issue with that. But nonetheless, there can be, groups that come in and make a racket. One thing we've looked at is we could put in noise monitors. There's a noise monitor you can get for a short-term rental, and it automatically tells you if somebody's, creating a problem noise-wise. And likewise, put in, a video monitor that will let you know if, something's going on like that. Anyway, I'm willing to, entertain those kind of ideas to make sure that the neighbors aren't going to be disturbed. And I think the point was brought up also that this kind of house is not really going to attract the party set, being the kind of home it is, being a historic home. Those who are kind of more interested in that experience will be attracted to this. And the bedrooms, it's a pioneer home. It's a small bedroom. They're not very big. The back building, it's also fairly small. So you probably wouldn't have more than, a couple, 2 or 3 cars there anyway for people staying.
One of the things about the argument that Forsbergs may have, it may be better to have different people there every day than bad ones there
All the
all the time.
That's funny.
We've tried hard to have, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the information. Any other comments or questions, council, for Mr. Lundberg? It is, and I didn't realize you'd built the back building fairly recently. It looks very good.
Yeah, one thing I had thought when you were talking earlier about the Cape Cod home, this is a New England farmhouse style with wood siding, which is kind of unusual for this area.
Yeah.
So,
It's really
Excuse
cute.
me, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
How many people are you intending to rent to then at a time? How big of a party would you consider?
well, we'd probably have at most 2 parties at one time, one in the back building.
Okay, by party, I mean people. Sorry.
People.
Yeah. Total number of people.
Well, if you had 2 bedrooms in the house, that would be, possibly 4 people. And then in the back, you've got a bedroom, so that could be 2.
6.
So
six
six
total.
So if they were to limit it to 6 people total, you would be okay with that?
Yeah.
I have a little challenge with that, though. I would like to see some restriction, but how do you,
Enforce that.
first of all, there's no way to monitor it. But second of all, what if there's 2 couples there and between them they got 6 kids, but they're there taking care of the kids? Then you'd defeat what that short-term rental may be used for.
Well, if you only allow 6 total, they wouldn't be able to have their 6 kids there with them. They wouldn't rent that property. They would rent a different property. But if
Yeah.
you're okay with not having a number, that's up to you guys to decide what you want to do.
This home isn't conducive to the kind of problematic short-term rental
Right.
where you bring in 50 people
Yeah.
with a pool and a pool party
Yeah.
and all that. In my mind. Now, if we want to pick an arbitrary number, we can, but to me, there's been a lot of findings and conditions put on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a fair concession to promote the preservation of this property, not discounting the concerns of some of the neighbors, but we've put a lot of restrictions on here. They have to follow all the rules, so forth. I think I'm like Joe. I was kind of like, we're not going to open up the door here, but I think I'm okay with it. So I'm going to go ahead and take a shot at a motion unless somebody else has something. they
Go
wanna-
for it, Jimmy.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for the Thurston Atkins House to operate as a vacation rental with the findings and conditions of Planning Commission.
We have a motion by Jimmy. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Betty, say aye.
I have to ask a question. Is this would be considered because it's an old pioneer home? Okay, so not all the neighbors. Okay. Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Notice I did that roll call vote. Just wanted to make it clear, so thank you.
I apologize because I wasn't here when you
Yeah.
discussed it before.
Betty
No,
wasn't here when we
that's
discussed it
true.
before.
I
No
know.
problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thanks for what you're doing and keeping it in the condition it is. It looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Item 15, I believe.
Whittling right away out of it.
We're booking, aren't we, Joe? Final plats.
Can we do those all together?
No, we have to do them one at a time. But they can be pretty quick.
I will be quick. Okay, item 15 is requested consider approval of a 10-lot residential subdivision final plat called Elmwood Estates Phase 4, Representatives Development Solutions. Property is located at 3350 East and 3100 South. Zone is R18. All aspects of this final plat reviewed by staff and it meets the conditions of the preliminary plat. You look in your vicinity map, it's kind of about the eastern edge of where development's occurring in the Little Valley area. Here's 3000 East here, and then there's Crimson Ridge Drive there.
Questions on this? She's ready to do it. Did you move?
Yes, I did.
We have a motion by Betty to approve this final plat. Do we have a second?
Second.
By Jimmy. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 16 is a request to consider approval of a two-lot residential subdivision final plat called Elmwood Estates Phase 5D. Representatives Development Solutions. Property is located at 3430 East, 3100 South. Zone is R18. All aspects of this final plat reviewed by staff and it meets the conditions of preliminary plat. Last one you approved is just right here, so it's just these two lots right there.
Move to accept this final plat.
Okay, motion to approve this final plat for Elmwood Estates Phase 5D by Betty, a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 17 is a request to consider approval of a 22-lot residential subdivision final plat called Fossil Hills Townhomes Phases 9 and 10. Representatives Development Solutions. Property is located at Fossil Hills Drive and Relic Ridge Drive. Zone is PDR. All aspects of this final plat reviewed by staff and meets the conditions of preliminary plat. So here's Brigham Road right here, and here's River Road right here. So it's just along River Road, just north of Brigham Road, right there in that development.
And this is when they're going to complete the road? Is this the one?
No.
That's down further.
This is.
Oh, I
just-
thought you were south.
No.
Okay, you're north.
Yeah. So this is like, let's see how to explain this. There's that Dixie Power building is right here. There's
Gotcha.
a lot in between. So
This is just the next one down
yeah.
from.
So this kind of finishes out their development. This is the area that's dedicated as hillside. As open space to not be disturbed, and then the rest would be common area with private ownership of those.
Oh,
Is there going to be a road on the east side of all of that that's going to go through?
No, so here's River Road right here. They're hoping to somebody's bought this lot, and they've been trying to work out a deal to put in a Champions Gymnastics here. It's zoned commercial right here on that parcel just to the northeast.
Between there and
Dixie Power.
any other questions? Ready for a motion?
Go ahead and make a motion to approve the final subdivision plat for Fossil Hills Town Homes Phase 9 and 10.
Motion by Jimmy with a second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 18 is request to consider approval of a four-lot residential subdivision final plat called Redwood Estates Phase 8C. Representatives Development Solutions. Property is located at 3350 East and 3100 South. Zone is R18. All aspects of this final plat reviewed by staff and meets the conditions of a preliminary plat. Those last two we discussed are right here, so it's just west of those.
Gotcha. Questions?
Motion to approve, Mayor, final plat for Redwood Estates Phase 8C subdivision.
Motion by Ed. Second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 19 is a request to consider approval of a 38-lot residential subdivision final plat called the Willows Subdivision. Representatives Development Solutions. Property is located at 27. This is actually located along Crimson Ridge Drive. It looks like they have the address wrong. Just east of River Road. Little Valley Road. Zone is R110. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff and it meets the conditions of preliminary plat. So if you look on your vicinity map right here, this is Crimson Ridge right here in front. And then Little Valley Road is right there. This was school property, and the school determined that they didn't want to build a school there anymore based on the proximity of other schools, so they have sold it and they're developing it.
Any questions?
Move to accept the final plat for the Willows subdivision located at 2710 East Street, 3530 South Street.
Second.
Except, is that where it really is?
No, it's really on Crimson Ridge Drive and just east of Little Valley Road. Sorry, they got the address
Never
wrong.
mind, on Crimson Ridge Drive.
And so there was a motion by Betty and a second by Jimmy. Any discussion? All in favor of approving this final plat, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 20 is requested to approve a preliminary plat for an 8-lot commercial subdivision called Twin Lakes Commercial. Property is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Red Hills Parkway and Cottonwood Springs Road. Property is 12.47 acres. Zone is PDC. General plan commercial. Applicant is Brent Gardner. So you've seen this before when they came through and did the zone change. This is Red Hills Parkway, Cottonwood Springs Drive here, Mall Drive underpass here. So they have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lots. This is that detention area where they built that and built that culvert that drains that. Their proposal is to dedicate that to the city for maintenance of drainage for Middleton Wash coming down through there. They also have proposed a 25-foot easement for that 10 by 10 culvert. We're working that out with the developer. I think staff is requesting a 40-foot easement, so we'll have to resolve that with them as far as that goes. And then they also are requesting to hold this portion of this parcel out and then eventually merge it with this parcel. And so if that's the case, we wouldn't allow access to this parcel off of Red Hills Parkway. It's too close, and they would have to come through here. So prior to this plat recording, they would have to get that resolved as far as merging it with this lot over here.
If they merged it, couldn't they get access from the bigger piece of property?
Well, this guy's expressed interest in the property, and he would like to have it, combine it, and access it through his property right here. That's what he would like to do. So they're trying to work that out.
But
That's why it needs to be done before the final plat records. Otherwise, this will need to become a lot, and then they'll have to get access through Lot 5 right here. So this would need to, this merger would need to take place before the final plat could record.
So we're okay for now
Yeah.
to approve the preliminary plat.
Subject to that. If the merger doesn't happen, then this would become a lot, and we'd have to have them provide an easement through this lot to get to
Gotcha.
that road.
So if it didn't happen, the preliminary plat would have to come back?
No, this would become Lot 9.
Okay.
Unless you want it to come back, but.
Well, no, it still has to come back for a final plat, regardless.
Yeah, so you'd see it at the final plat, we'd show you the
Okay.
changes. Yes, you're correct.
Okay.
Mayor, as long as that is a PD commercial,
It is.
I would make a motion to go ahead and approve the preliminary plat for the Lakes commercial with
Second.
the conditions articulated by Wes.
Thank you. Motion by Ed, second by Jimmy, I believe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, item 21 is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 35-unit subdivision, The View at Green Valley. Site is located at 1900 West, 1100 South in the Green Valley area. Property is 3.06 acres for a density of 11.44 dwelling units. General plan is MHDR. Applicant is GVS Holdings. The one issue we've been working out with them is access. There's a 50-foot private drive that comes into here, and then there's access through here. This private drive is actually owned by GVS Holdings right now, and they've agreed to dedicate that to The View as their access from Plantations Drive in, and then granting Worldmark an easement or continue the easement to Worldmark across there. The only portion they don't own to their access is about right through here, and so they're working with Worldmark to try to get an easement over that portion there so that they would have access from Plantations for their entire drive. If that doesn't work, then they will just shift the road over here, reduce some utilities here so that their access lines up with an easement that they already have right there.
So again, this ought to be subject to them working that out.
Yeah, right.
Before a final plat.
Right. And we'd
Seems
show you
like-
a final plat.
Seems like they should be able to, since they're benefiting Worldmark.
Yeah, right. I would hope so. And if not, then they'll just move their driveway
Yep.
closer to here, and
Yep.
it will match up with what easement they do have.
It's good that they own that access.
Yeah, it is, because that gets them access now to their property.
Yeah.
So it'll become common area to their development as part of The View, and then with easements granted as to Worldmark.
Ready for a motion, council, but it probably ought to, again, just include that the applicant would need to work out that access easement or modify the entrance a little bit.
Correct.
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for the View at Green Valley, subject to working out the access agreement.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Wes. Yep. Thank you, everyone. I don't have any appointments to boards or commissions. I would like to look, Christina, and I know you've got it. I'd like to look at the boards and commissions, the membership and the expirations of terms. I want to look at those here as we get close to the end of the year and be ready if we need to make any reappointments or new appointments. Any reports from council members, city manager? I know it's late. Nothing from you, Adam. Adam and I do have a couple things. We'll probably just talk with you over the course of the next week. Just a couple things, but I don't believe we're going to go into a closed session tonight. Thank you all. We don't need a closed session, right? Betty, anything to report?
I'm too tired to remember.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Just really quickly, Switch Point fundraising luncheon. It's a requirement that you are all there.
When is it?
Thursday, yep, November 1st, 12 noon. It is always kept to 1 hour, free lunch. We'll shake you down for money after. It's real low key. There's an envelope on the table. If you want to donate, you can. If you don't, you don't. But you get lunch. They really want to make sure that they recognize our support of them and the public-private relationship. So if you can all do that. Part of that, too, is one of our board members is resigning, Tim Martin.
Tim?
So if any of you have any suggestions that I can pass along to the chairman and to the board, we would love that. Someone of Tim's caliber.
Oh, he's been great.
Good luck. So
Ralph
anyways,
Atkin.
Yeah, Christina, you'll remind us,
Ralph.
right?
Ralph.
November 1st.
November 1st at noon at Sun River.
and it will be it's just a brief kind of, here's where we are at Switch Point, here's where we've been, here's where we're going. Got a really great new video out they're going to show. One short success story, boom, we're done, out of there. Sun River.
I'll be there. That's true. Any other updates, Joe? Do you have any updates? Ed?
Mayor, I just mentioned that the Hillside Board met last Wednesday, and that's at Stone Cliffs, about a 21, 22 lot design up there that was approved and moved on. It's just right off of 1450 and
Yep.
just west
Yep.
of 3000.
They worked that out.
It's all worked out.
Okay. Good. I remember seeing that conceptually. All right. I don't have anything else. DTEC met, but there's nothing really to report there. Just some good reports, but still kind of working on the St. George to Springdale line, potential transit, some kind of mass transit situation, public, private, both. Hired a consultant to help us with that, which I think is really wise. All right, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, motion by Jimmy to adjourn, second by Ed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No one's opposing. We're adjourned. Chief.